Cool. There we go. Now, see if I get rid of that. I'm not really sure how. Remove. Boom. There we go. Hey. All right. Welcome. Hope everybody has having a wonderful Warthog Wednesday. I'm Shanghai, and I've got another just awesome guest with me tonight. You'll remember from episode number 1, I interviewed my former squadron commander, Mike Irish O'Connor. And here is he was the squadron commander of the Vultures, my Desert Storm combat squadron, and I have his better half. I have the first lady of the Vultures, Pat O'Connor, is with me, joining me from her studio in Bourne, Texas. Welcome, Pat.
Hi.
It is wonderful to see Pat. I've not seen Pat in, I don't know, 32, 33 years, something like that. But Pat was a wonderful person, is a wonderful person, is just one of the most beloved people. That's not family, that is family. We had a Vulture family. It was really an awesome squadron. You can't imagine a better group of people to go to combat with, a better boss and her husband, and a better first lady for the Vultures than Pat was to all of us. She was mom. I mean, I think he even required us to call you mom. I'm pretty sure. But not just mom to the single guys, the bachelors in the squadron, guys like Mount McKinley. You'll remember him. Disco, Ingle, those guys. I think Disco went on to be a 2-star or something, by the way. But it got his call sign, by the way, at the Vultures. In the parking lot of a hotel in Vandal, Denmark. I won't tell that story online here, but maybe I'll have Disco on one day and he might tell the story of becoming Disco. But anyway, Pat was not just mom to the bachelor guys, the young guys, but she was mom to all of us, and she was a really big support to our spouses. I was married during that time, and our squadron was in England. We weren't, and our spouses didn't have the luxury of, close friends other than squadron friends down the street or families, around the corner or in the next state or even in the same continent. And so that was a big deal too, I think. And we're going to talk about that kind of stuff as we go along. But I'm going to just shut up now and let Pat kind of give us the origin story on Pat. What's Pat all about? Where'd you grow up? How'd you meet Mike, and how'd you become an Air Force First Lady?
Well, thanks. I'll be stuttering quite a lot. Don't, before I start talking about anything though, I have a plea, which is if anyone has photos of the hog walk when you guys were over at Desert Storm, people are asking for it, and I don't have. Well, then you need to share, please.
I actually have them. I do. I've got some. I just came across them the last couple of days as I've been uploading content for the channel. In fact, it's a good segue to. I'll come back to that topic, but it's a good segue too into the first couple comments in the live chat. Folks are a new program I'm rolling out for channel memberships. I'll talk more about that at the end, but I wanted to post it there in the first comments. Hey Rebel, hey Vicky, I'm looking at the comments here, the live chat going on, and there's a couple of our great supporters right there as well. So hi to you folks. But yeah, Pat, I actually came across some of those photos. I didn't come across the ones I wanted, which was like homecoming. They're all in a. Angela said, "Oh, those are in that scrapbook I made for you." So they're in my storage. I didn't get there today, but yeah, I've got. I will send those to you. I've got. You're talking about the hog walk in the desert.
In the desert.
Okay, because I've got the hog walk that we did pre-deployment. I've got some of those when we were just trying to figure out how do we get 24 jets and spares all off and over the English Channel and up to tankers. We practiced that once, I believe. So I've got that. But yeah, I've got that scene that's got just like the whole taxiway and just all those A-10s.
Yep.
I'll send those to you for sure. Yep.
Okay.
Good.
You could put it on the Vulture Facebook page.
Okay, I will. I posted the link to this podcast there, so hopefully folks are watching. So yeah.
And hopefully we're working on having our next reunion next year in Alconbury.
Oh, cool. Right on. I've not made one of those yet. And I really wanted to make the the last one. Of course, COVID came into play. I think the first one maybe, but then also my work as when I was resident, working resident director of the Phoenix House there. It's pretty tough to get away. In fact, I was telling one of the podcasts was saying in in 3.5 years of doing that, and I was only going to do it at the start of COVID just to help lock down the place when we didn't know what it was, and I was the only guy that left that place for 45 days. I literally moved in there and then locked the place down, and I didn't leave for 3.5 years. So uh, except for 2 days to go to my son's wedding down in Houston, 2 Januaries ago. So, but anyway, but yeah, Alconbury, that'd be awesome. And that's so. What is there sort of a thought on the month? It's probably the springtime, I'm guessing. Or?
We're working. No, we're going to have to go to probably August or September because of people coming in and out.
Okay, and the weather's nice that time of year as well.
Yeah,
so good, perfect. And my book will be published. It'll be awesome.
Okay,
so that'll be great. Yeah, right on.
Yeah,
man,
the last awesome. One we had a book from Buck. So
yeah, exactly. Okay. That's right.
A little bit about me. I was an Air Force fledgling because we don't have Air Force brats.
That's right.
My father had been in the United States Navy. He was an enlisted pilot in World War II, which I didn't know that, but he then decided to go from, they were going to send him back out on a ship. We were in St. Louis. Long story short, Dad went into the Air Force. He called my mother in 1958 and said, "We have orders." And she said, "Where are we going?" And he said, "Siam," which is now Thailand.
Yeah.
And Mom said, "Where is that?" Yeah. So we spent 2 years in Bangkok. He was working with Thai Airways for the United States Air Force. We moved from there when Vietnam was starting to get ugly. We were sent to Japan. We left there and went to Ohio. What's special about Ohio? I went to high school with Michael. I was a year younger than he was.
How about that?
Michael and I met. School was canceled one day. People were going to go skiing. I got in the car sitting next to Michael. I tried to ski. Not good. So I went inside. He continued. And then we both ended up, Mike went to Miami of Ohio. Well, I shouldn't have said that because it's Miami, because that place down in Florida, Miami was there before Florida was even a state.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but in Northeast Oklahoma, there's a town that's spelled Maimi, Miami, whatever.
Yep.
But they don't pronounce it Miami. They pronounce it Miami.
Miami.
So I'll go with Miami of Ohio is Miami. You bet.
And then Michael went to decided to join the Air Force, and it started from there.
How about that? Because I know that your experience as a Air Force fledgling was not what led Mike to the Air Force. I know he had interest in aviation before that, but what a turn of events. It's not just a turn of events. There's not coincidence in life. I don't believe. I think things are preordained to happen the way they're supposed to happen. But how cool! So you were take me back because I might have missed it. So you moved to Ohio at about the time of high school. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And met Mike. And look at how many years ago was that? That's a few, isn't it?
Just a couple.
Yeah. Wow. That's so awesome. That's just super awesome. So you were preconditioned to be first lady of a lot of things because.
Well, I wouldn't. I will be. There are a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda. I cannot in there were people that Mike was working with or for that I didn't care for very much. I would step away. The spouses, the Vulture spouses know that when you all went to Desert Storm and we would go to the club, we would get together during the week, have lunch or something. But there was when a certain person came into the club and we were there, the music was turned on, and that music was "I've Got Friends in Low Places."
Mm-hmm.
That was in reference to the Dio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roger that.
Yeah. So I need to put my plug in right now. Our two boys were absolutely amazing during Desert Storm. A lot of you gentlemen decided to get that real short hair, like
Yeah.
really short.
We got the flat tops before we left. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Sean, the eldest, and Colin decided that's what they had to do.
I remember this.
So
It was cute.
Father Dave came over to the house and took care of its hair.
Yeah, I remember that. It was cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, because see, Colin was what, about 8 or 9 maybe that time.
No, Colin was in the first grade.
Okay.
It was Sean that was older.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Sean was at the high school.
Okay. Yeah. That's right.
And Sean is now, Sean was going to school, said, "Mom, I don't know what I want to do with my life." And I said, "Well, better figure it out." So he joined the Air Force and had that same haircut when he was sent to Iraq.
Oh wow, how about that, man?
And he is now works for Jane's, which is not really called Jane's, but he does all sorts of things. He's a persona non grata in quite a few countries because he gets the information. He was on TV when they had the airplane that disappeared in Asia.
Yeah. Malaysia.
Our other son is Colin is a chef. Colin is an amazing chef. Colin also does some things with Black Rifle Coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great organization.
I love my coffee, and they love the military. How did the wives supported each other? And I appreciate, being the lady. And no, we didn't have. We worked as a team. Everybody took care of everybody. And I'm not talking just, I did my best to keep in touch with everybody. Art would get together with us on certain things, and I would look at him and say, "No, we're not doing that." When the two of my memorable things is one, when the guys were going on the big airplane and, the pilots were going, there was one of our pilots that was stalling and didn't want to go through you have to go through the private, and you go in, and he kept finding reasons why he couldn't go. And I talked to him and said, "No, Come on, you got to go. So when the airplane took off with all of you guys and all of the maintainers and everybody else, Michael came back out through the backside where you're supposed to be, and I grabbed him by the arm and I said, "Do not let anything happen to this young man, because I told him he had to go through that door and go. So you make sure everything happens is okay with him." Father Dave held, because that was Christmas Eve. Father Dave held midnight mass until we could get going.
Yeah.
How did I find out about when things were actually happening? My sister was in the Air Force. She was stationed in Ramstein, and I got a phone call from my sister at home, and they're in Alconbury. Oh, that's what I have to say. I knew this was going to be an amazing assignment when we had Mike's was announced. Mike was going to be the commander of the squadron, and that night we lived in the village. We did not live on base, right. And we had a roof stop.
Yeah.
And my neighbors to this day will talk about that. They thought that was so great. The wives came over another day, and Mike was upstairs, I was downstairs, and we were all just chatting and getting to know each other. And one of the wives said, "Well, what do we call him? Do we call him Colonel? Do we call him, and I said, and about that, I said, I don't know." Mike walked down to the bottom of the stairs and said he heard it. And young lady said, "Well, what am I supposed to call him? What do you want me to call you?" And he said, "I don't care if you call me Yo Dude." And that, with most of the wives, he was Yo Dude.
Yo Dude, really? I didn't know that. That's funny. Yeah.
The ladies called him as Yo Dude.
That's funny. Yeah, let me pause you just for a second, Pat, and say a couple things. One is, I'm really appreciating all the stories and reminiscing of some of the things that I didn't even know, like that, for instance, right there. But you and Mike were very, very, very special. It was really, I had been, just for the viewers, I had been, my first squadron was the 23rd Tactical Air Support Squadron at Tucson, but I was only there on base for a year, and half of that was training, the formal B course in the A10, and then a spin up course in the OA10. And then I volunteered to go to Korea to the 19th Tactical Air Support Squadron to convert to the OA10 over there. And so I wasn't in my first squadron very long, but as I mentioned, the actual name of my channel, the name of my book, Two Bags Full, comes from my first squadron commander. I told that story on the last podcast, and actually going to put up tomorrow a video short of that story. But so that was a very impactful time. The first squadron, what kind of always is, but in that squadron commander being this kind of a Vietnam hero and just this bigger than life character, it really was a character in many ways. And anybody that, I won't tell stories on him too much, but Bud Jackson was famous and infamous, both. Pat probably knows what I'm talking about, but I can't tell you that I knew Bud's wife, and for that first year, well, I was married, fairly newly married. Angela worked full time. We didn't live on base for most of that time. We did get a base house, towards the end. But then we volunteered to go to Korea. She transitioned back to Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, to live with her parents. Back with her parents, after having graduated from college and being an independent young lady. But because Korea was a 1-year remote assignment, so she went back to Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, to live with her parents and substitute taught school. Now she spent about half that year actually in Korea, because we had a pretty loose rules over at Suwon on for remote tours on how long spouses could visit. I think it was supposed to be like 2 weeks, but our squadron commander being a bachelor guy and us being at a South Korean air base, just a little corner of it, with really no adult supervision there. They were all at Osan, which Pat knows about very well. But at any rate, point is, um, so the whole issue of support for a family and involvement of a spouse in the squadron was not something we experienced in my first assignment. It was certainly not anything we experienced in Korea, although we had some fun over there. There was a couple other spouses occasionally over there, but that was really a kind of very independent visiting operation for her as well. And then, so really, Alconbury was our first real assignment. It was the first time that we, moved a household, and got a base house and and kind of became part of a squadron, but made really lasting friends. And and the spouses had a really, a good. It's just a good bunch of folk is what it was. Good bunch of dudes, a good bunch of wives. I don't, we didn't have really any problems with those. The other squadron might have had a few. We didn't have any problems with. I don't think that. And and so what I want to say about all that, just my sort of history with it as well, but is that you might be able to tell. Pat doesn't mince words. Pat is a very strong person, and you got to be an Air Force. A child in the Air Force and moving like that, and then to be an Air Force spouse. And you'll recall from my first episode with her husband that Irish's career was somewhat similar to mine, in that moved around a fair bit, went to places like weapons school and things like that, that take you away from home a lot. And so and then the deployment to the desert. So you got to be an independent person to be an Air Force spouse. I'll say spouse because in my day there were no women flying fighters. So so when I talk about the dudes and the wives, I am not being sexist by any means. It's just I'm just dating myself in terms of my experience. I've said on other podcasts like Movers podcasts that while I was not a really proponent of the ladies flying fighter jets, I was wrong. I've told Kim Campbell, Killer Chick, went on to be a great leader in the Air Force, and in fact was the squadron commander of again after my time, but of my last squadron, the 75th Tiger Sharks of the Flying Tigers. So, and she was she was a great leader, great fighter pilot, great attack pilot, a great role model for the A-10. So, and I've told her personally that I was wrong about the women flying fighters. But my point is that just is in my time it wasn't a thing. So I want to make that comment as well, that not being sexist, it's just the way it was in my time. Now, though you went through that transition, of course, where there were women flying fighters and in Mike's career, but the point is you got to be an independent person. These ladies had to be strong because we were gone a lot, and the desert notwithstanding, and just even the spin up to that. I mean, man, I remember going into the vault. My office, so to speak, my desk was actually in a vault because I was chief of combat plans. And I remember going in, and it was dark in the morning when I went in there. If I wasn't flying, it was dark when I came out. I remember going to Thanksgiving dinner over the Cavotes with the Pepins, actually, and I ate dinner, but I went back to the squadron, and I know Mike was there. So I mean, that was what we experienced for that in 6 months in the desert. So, but Pat, I appreciate about you, and I know you say that you all were a team, and you weren't really the first lady, but you were. I know it was a team, and you had great ladies. I know Martha Bennett and help me with Pepsi's wife's name. I don't recall, but
Barbara.
Wayne and Barbara, yeah. So. I know, I just, of course, then, Keith and Martha became the leaders of the squadron there the short time before I left, but after you and Mike went on to bigger and better things, but yeah, but but I love too that you didn't bypass you didn't sort of skirt the issue of the leadership that got left behind. that you had to deal with there. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I've told the story. I've told the story on Movers Channel, and by the way, for for the viewers as well, I will tell the story about the helicopter shoot down, probably in the next episode. Um, but and I've also I've made a short video of that from my interview with Mover a couple years ago because I tell that story there. So I've condensed that down into that segment of the interview, and I'm going to put that on the channel as well, for our viewers and members. But I will tell the whole story. But my point is that one of the great things too, Pat, is that you mentioned the club. So for people that don't understand, that's the Officers Club. Um, you can tell me about this maybe a little more, Pat, but my understanding is that today it's not as big of a thing as it was back in our day. But back in our day, um, it wasn't mandatory, but it was but it wasn't mandatory or expected. It was just going to happen that everybody
Yep.
was going to be at the Officers Club on a Friday night, and some other nights as well. And Friday night started about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it ended, I don't know, Sunday or something. But anyway, but we had good times at the Officers Club. And it wasn't just about drinking and whatever. There was some of that. Maybe there might have been some imbibing of adult beverages that occurred occasionally. But it was just about camaraderie and getting everybody together. And the wives were there waiting for us when we showed up after our safety meeting or weapons brief or whatever, we were intel brief or
Yep.
whatever we had on Friday afternoons. And we had a blast. And it was just a good group of people. And it was cool that carried on when we were in the desert. When I shot the helicopter down, it just happened to be Friday night back in Alconbury, and and the person that you mentioned, that wing staff member, pulled Angela out of the crowd. I don't know if he came to you first, maybe, but came out of the crowd, say, "Well, I want to tell you about something that happened. Todd's okay," and he was all trying to make her, that like we weren't at war or something. But did something exciting happen? He shot down a helicopter. What did she do? She went in and rang the bell like she should. Bought the bar, right? It's shit hot, right? Like she should. So that was the kind of culture that we had among our spouses. But you picked up, you had responsibilities for the maintenance and the enlisted staff and the maintainers too, to some degree, didn't you?
Well,
I don't know how much Bob Ham. I don't even know if he was married, um, but
I will tell you, I had some interaction. People that helped me to do what I did happens to be the prior commander.
Yeah. Was that Dana or Jack?
Jack. And
Jack, okay.
Jack's wife. And
yeah.
They were always there if I needed them.
Yeah.
Until you went to the desert and you took Jack, but Ginger stayed here.
Yeah. And Ginger was an Air Force.
Yes. She was maintenance.
Air Force. Yes, she was a maintenance officer.
Yeah, I think it was maintenance. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had some interaction with the, I tried my best to keep in touch. The enlisted people and the maintainers and everybody did such an amazing job. Rick Roundtree.
Yeah, Rick. Yeah.
Rick Roundtree, God bless his soul. I knew Rick first from Boy Scouts because I was involved with the Boy Scout program there at Alconbury.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And Rick kept it, what he did and all of the articles he wrote and kept sending things to us was absolutely amazing. I stay in touch with his wife. Every time I go to Arlington to visit my sister, I go see Rick. Because, bottom line is we're all a family.
Yeah.
Every single one of us could turn to someone else and say, I need, and you would not even get the next comment out. We took care of each other. Okay. That was the amazing part. That was the fun part. I really would have appreciated when Mike found out he was leaving, that he would have told Mike first and let Mike tell me. I found out when Art announced it to all the wives.
Oh, really?
And I was like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? But everybody, did we have differences at times? Yes, we did. There were times I would come home and I would talk to my two children, and they had no idea what I was talking about, but I needed to vent. I've started to say before, my sister worked at Ramstein. She called me on the phone, which was out of the ordinary. And she said, I need you to turn on BBC right now. And I went, Mary Beth, it's late. She said, turn it on. The BBC coverage of what was going on over there was absolutely amazing. They had dioramas. They were moving A10s on sticks. It was amazing. And that's how I found out what was going on. We didn't get a phone call or, hey, it's starting or anything. We all found. Then I got a call from this lovely French lady who said, Pat, the colonel's on the newspaper. I said, what are you talking about? When he landed there, you had all these people out there. They're all taking pictures. And Sophie's parents called her. And so, I have newspaper things from around the world of Mike sitting there. The only thing, the bad part was I tried to get that interview from CNN, and they wanted me to pay something like $3,000, and I could keep the information for I think it was like a year. And I said, it's my son, it's my husband, you can't do that. Another thing, because I was very concerned.
Did you ever get that?
Huh?
Let me interrupt you. Did you get that footage?
No.
Okay, I just wrote down a note because I might be able to help with that as well. Actually,
yeah, I never got that footage.
Yeah, and by the way, I wasn't in that photo, but I was just kind of behind. I think I might have been number 3 in that formation, but yeah, that's cool.
But the other thing was, I was not telling people what they could or couldn't do, except when one of the up said, we're going to do this with the children at the school. And I said, the hell you are. You cannot do that. But I kept in touch with the schools because we were talking about our children. Okay. And their dads are gone. And you don't need a teacher telling. The night you guys flew those airplanes off, Public Affairs was there. And they stuck when you guys came out, you had your guns on, you were getting ready to get on your airplane. And Public Affairs put a camera and a mic. And the young lady said, so what do you think about your dad going to war and he might die? I grabbed her by the arm. Art Headland is coming over because they're getting all upset. We all took care of each other when something happened. Okay.
Yeah. And it was unprecedented too, wasn't it, Pat? I mean, people don't realize this, but this was really the first, sort of almost live televised war. I mean, Vietnam, I remember being a little kid. I mean, I would have been 6, 7, 8, 9 years old during the sort of latter years of Vietnam, and born in 1964. So,
that's where Irish got his first, he was involved in Koh Tang.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. And so, I remember seeing on the nightly news, and by the way, back then there was like three news channels, right? It was ABC, NBC, and CBS. That was it. There was no 24-hour news cycle, so you would see something that happened, last week, from
Yeah.
fighting in Vietnam. Um, but it was pretty sterile. It was just sort of a wide panoramic view of soldiers going across a rice paddy or something, or maybe an aircraft coming in, but it's pretty sterile stuff. Um, and that was the news, and there would be newspaper articles and things of that nature as well. But that was all you had. And then flash forward now to early 1991, and it's a whole new deal. As Pat said, BBC and CNN back in the United States. Fox News didn't exist back then, by the way. I would have said that. But so you know, and even us, we ended up having a satellite feed of from we had BBC and we had CNN, and there's a picture that I wanted to find. I actually reached out to my former wife last night, and she looked through some of her photos, couldn't find it either. It's probably again in my storage somewhere, but in a box. But I remember it's a picture of the Vulture wives, most of them gathered around, I think in Elizabeth Turner's house, and they're all gathered around a little TV, just it's probably 26-inch TV or whatever, big TV at the time, and they're watching Wolf Blitzer and CNN Center, and then they're watching Bernard Shaw on the roof of the Al Rashid Hotel in downtown Baghdad. The skies over Baghdad are illuminated tonight. Whoops, and here's all this anti-aircraft artillery going up, and stuff blowing up, and I just remember this picture of our wives huddled around this TV, and one of the things I wanted to have Pat on is that, and she is talking about, and let's get into some more, is just sort of the support of military families and the stress and strain on military families with the ops tempo that's occurred really since then, and through now, and the deployments and the combat deployments and all those kinds of things. But I took it for granted. I really didn't think about it at the time, but now, I guess with age comes some sort of wisdom or whatever, I guess. And I remember thinking not too long ago, and as I've said before, the sort of process of writing the book about my combat experiences, it kind of forced you to sort of delve back into that memory bank and get out those scrapbooks and those articles and things and just sort of remember. But now, of course, it's all in a different light, in a different point of view, in a different period in my life, and hope there's some wisdom that occurs there. And I thought, man, I didn't really think about that stuff. I didn't think about what it must have been like for them to be watching that stuff. Scary, it had to be scary as hell. And knowing that we're going into harm's way, it's cool to see your husband and the kids see their dad, on CNN and on the newspapers and stuff. But you think of it, I think of it in those, I thought of it in those terms and not in the terms of, that is be scary as hell, because this is real now. It's not just we're going over for Desert Shield and we're going to have this big show of force and Saddam Hussein's going to leave Kuwait. No, we're going to combat. And it's combat with the third largest army in the world, who's in the desert, and they're dug in, and we're in green jets, and we've been practicing tactics for the forested, fold the gap of Germany, and not the desert, and not this army with the most sophisticated integrated air defense systems in the history of mankind, more than in Russia. I mean, more than around Moscow. Baghdad was the most heavily defended city in the world, and that'd be just scary as hell. I didn't think about it much in those terms, and I've said this before on other channels, is that, and Pat, I want you to maybe speak to this too, is, well, you had that kind of technology, that kind of news cycle, that kind of live coverage of this war. What you didn't have was Facebook and Messenger and text messages and emails, that stuff. I mean, we got, remember this, we got once a week, once the thing sort of got going about after the first week, we got this piece of vellum paper that was about like this, and you could write a message on that, and then it got faxed to base ops and delivered. You couldn't write anything super personal, because it was just right there, man. It was just, fax paper.
Some of them were personal.
Yeah, well,
some of them were personal.
And if you were chief of combat plans like me and maybe had access to a Stu 3 and your spouse happened to live on base, you might be able to, in the middle of the night at Alconbury, make a call to base ops and get a quick connection through to have a conversation. I did that once or twice, but I'd already flown 10 combat missions before we talked at all like that. And it was very rare. There were those the stateside guys had these like phone booths that I think AT&T had set up that they could go and make calls back home, but we didn't have that connection back to England like that that I recall, at least not during the initial
Well, I
combat
can
ops.
tell
So
you, Irish didn't make a phone call.
well, and see that's the thing, Pat, is that, and I wanted to say this is that, and yeah, and I made one, and it was awkward as hell, frankly, and I didn't want to make another one. I maybe made one more, but that was it. I thought it was a cool idea, and it was like, what the hell do you talk about?
Yeah.
Hey, how are you doing? How was your day? Oh, I did. Well, how was yours? Oh, well, I went up to just south of Baghdad 3 times and got shot at a bunch and scared my ass off and blew up a bunch of shit. How are you doing?
But
What do you? And so nowadays when these guys, they have FaceTime and text messaging and all this stuff, like I don't know what you say and how you do that. It's a whole different thing. It's a transition that I know you experienced in your career. Um, it ignorance is bliss a little bit in those situations, but I do say that though in the context of yeah, we were busy. I don't know how the boss did it. I mean, it's just such an awesome leader and an awesome combat leader, and the stress of that, the enormity of it, um, it just is mind-boggling. But frankly, but but um, but to know that we had a great group of spouses and that those spouses had great support, and we didn't, I'm not talking about great support from the wing or the third air force or the United States Air Forces in Europe or the Air Force as a whole. I'm talking about Pat O'Connor and Martha Bennett and Barbara Pepin, those, and Ginger Schaefer, those ladies, and I imagine some good support from Dana Longino's wife and the other squadron that stayed back behind,
yeah.
but 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 I knew that I was secure in that. Might be giving myself a little too much credit because frankly I didn't think about it much.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just
You're busy.
yeah, not that busy. I mean, Mike was, but yeah, it
no,
was super busy. Yeah. We were playing
and
volleyball
it's difficult because I understand. What are you going to say? I'm okay, honey.
Yeah.
I'm not going to believe you to tell me you're okay.
Yeah.
He never
Wasn't there a little
called.
bit of, wasn't
Yeah,
there an effort kind of at first, Pat, to kind of dumb down the sort of perception at Alconbury that we were at war? Like they put out this cool little, and maybe Rick Roundtree was in charge of this, but this cool little newsletter or whatever. I've got some of them somewhere in storage
yeah,
as well, but it was cool. But it was kind of like what was on the menu for dinner, and oh, they've set up a volleyball court or whatever. It was like and there was some good content in there about how we're doing in combat as well, I'm sure. But but at least among the pilots' wives, they knew what was up. They knew what we were doing. They knew what was at stake. Um, it doesn't mean it's not scary, but at the same time, you can't treat them like they're their children and oh, they're all fine. They're having steak for dinner or whatever. I mean, that's all good and well and good, but there's other stuff going on too. By the way, is this the
I can't see
if I
it.
can make this happen? See if I can make this happen. Is this the
Yeah,
haircut? That's the
I see.
haircut and
Yep, that's the haircut.
yeah, and that's it.
That's the haircut.
That's the gun right there. Right there. And
Yeah,
that's the spouse who's been crying, and that's about 3:30 in the morning.
yeah.
On I think the 27th of December, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had the
they were
boys
up,
out
so
there with me.
yeah, right on. Yeah, no, I remember, and I remember how cute it was. The haircut, it was awesome.
Yeah, but it. I do have to say, the children we were getting letters from around the world.
Yeah.
And I know Mike answered a lot of them. I know you got the rest of you guys over there while you were there were answering them. I got, stacks and would do what I could do. And it just, to have some little, 8-year-old child saying, don't worry, be happy. We're all thinking about them, and I have a lot of those.
I do
And
too.
Actually, they're going to the Air Force Museum
Cool.
along with a bunch of other of Irish stuff because, what are we going to do with it? So,
Yeah, a lot of
but
my stuff is in a private museum up in Olathe, Kansas, with a really good friend of mine, Eddie, who's a friend of the channel and just become one of my best friends and supported me through some stuff. Big supporter of veterans and has quite a bit of my stuff, and with the provision that in a museum that he has privately, and provision that when Eddie's no longer with us, which another 50 years or so, that stuff goes to my son Austin. But um, but yeah, I've got again. I was hoping to advance this, but I'll put up some of this stuff afterwards in my additional content that I'm going to be putting on the channel. But I've got a bunch of that stuff too. I've got the yellow ribbons that were tied around the that there was no trees in base housing, but that attached to the front of the house
well,
on base. And
the Air Force Museum is who we are working with right now, because they do rotations of things. And a friend of ours from when we were at Zaragoza was working there. And I told him, I said, we've got all this stuff. We don't need all this stuff. The walls are, and I said, I'm just going to, give him to Goodwill or something. He said, don't you dare. He said, that's our history.
yeah,
That's who we are, what we've done. So that's what our oldest son is trying to, because he lives in Ohio, is trying to make a connection that way.
that's cool. And of course, we got the Desert Storm Memorial, I think, underway, and
Oh
so
yeah, we
there's some
went
cool stuff.
for the opening. We went for the ground. When they dug the first thing up, and it's going to be amazing. It's
That's
it's going to
cool.
be
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
what I was going to say about those like letters, any service member letters or whatever, and some were specifically, to vultures from people that knew us, but a lot of them were just any service member, and they
oh
were,
yeah,
I mean, it was just overwhelming. I mean, in emotionally and also just physically, in terms of the amount of that stuff that came. I made a policy of I didn't open it unless I was going to, reply to it.
reply.
I also had the opportunity after the war, a few years after leaving the Air Force, to speak at some schools that wrote some of those letters. My former wife's mother was a third grade teacher in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, for like forever, and her class wrote. I got to speak to them. It was cool, and yeah, that was just an outpouring of love and support and good wishes and goodwill, and sometimes treats and stuff from people just all over the country, all over the world, really. It was amazing. I've kept those letters as well. Angela put together a really cool scrapbook with all the clippings and those kinds of things that I have as well. And but sort of good memories. But and those kind of well wishes are cool. But the support of military families. I think just really the unsung heroes a lot of times of of starting with Desert Storm. Really, I mean that began. We hadn't had you know really a significant armed conflict. I mean, there'd been some military operations, some special ops stuff. We had El Dorado Canyon in Libya. We lost an airplane there, and F-111. So there'd been a few things going on, Grenada, Falklands, but nothing, not a war like Vietnam or Desert Storm. So you had, since the mid 70s to early 90s, there was really nothing like that. And then here we are, a whole generation who had not been in combat essentially, and now here we go. And since then, have pretty well continually been in combat somewhere around the world, that
Yeah.
same area of operations, or Afghanistan, or many other places. So and it ain't getting any better probably either. In fact, ramping up to maybe something even more significant than that. Hopefully not. Knock on wood. But so you went through that whole period of time. I mean, um, you were obviously starting with the Desert Storm deployment, and then as Mike continued on in a very long career, um, you saw a lot of folks go out the door to deployments, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We
I
did.
mean, it probably doesn't get any easier. Is it probably the Air Force got better? I would guess that maybe did they? I'm not saying they were poor at it during our time. I don't know what it was like for, the the folks at Myrtle Beach or England Air Force Base, Louisiana, or other, the myriad of other places around the world. I'm just mentioning the places that had A-10 that sent A-10s over there, but I know it was awesome at Alconbury. I'm going to go ahead and say again, Pat, it's awesome because of you and the other leaders of the squadron's spouses who stepped up to be the role models, examples, and probably the shoulders and the stalwarts of supporting our families, our spouses. But but I think just in general, I'm not making this is not a disparagement on the Air Force at all, and my views are always my own. But is that I think the families for a long time, hopefully over time it's gotten better, have been sort of an also ran in the equation, and it's a tough job. It's a tough job. Then the ops tempo just got heavier and heavier, meaning this ops tempo meaning operations, exercises, deployments for training and real world activities such as combat support and all that kind of things. It got unbelievable, frankly, almost untenable, and for the families, it had to be just awfully hard.
Well, and I will tell you, our eldest, Sean, after Desert Storm, we went to Carlisle. Sean was a scout, and Sean was trying to figure out what he wanted to do for an Eagle project. And he came to me and he said, I think I know what I want to do. And I said, well, you need to talk to your advisor. This is not a conversation you and I are going to have. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you anyway. He said, I've heard about, you've been working while you're here at Carlisle about how the wives did. What can we do better? And this is all the forces, not just the Air Force. And we're all working together. And Sean said, is anybody talking about the kids? I said, what are you talking about? He said, is anyone doing anything about talking to the children who were affected by Desert Storm? And I said, I don't know. That is what that young man did for his Eagle project. He interviewed any of the youth there at Carlisle Barracks whose parents were involved in any way on that. That book right now is still in the library at Carlisle Barracks.
No
and
kidding.
I will tell you, I have not found one other thing done.
Wow.
About
awesome.
how the children, what they felt, what they did, what they could have had, what they wanted.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things where the spouses, whether they had children or not, were always supportive of the moms who were trying to take care of children who we don't know how to tell them. Okay.
Right.
What do you say? What do you not say? What
Right.
can we do to help those children? And that's when I, mentioned before, when the school and the Air Force decided people were going to come in and talk to these, kindergarten, first, second, third children about what is war, what could happen. That's when I went ballistic and I said, that's not your job.
Good. God bless you for that. Yeah, that's right.
And, I got little snap on the hands, but I just told him, I said, I will make this such an issue. You cannot do this. So, you're a mom, you're sitting at home, your child comes home from school, doesn't, it's up to the parent that's there to discuss this. This is
Amen.
not an Air Force issue, which is where Sean went to say, this is an Air Force issue because you missed out. You had you had people trying to tell kids things that they shouldn't have.
Right.
So, that's
Well, and remember, folks, this was in 1991. So this is you imagine what it's like in 2023. This
yeah,
was this there was not this was, I'll say, maybe sort of the beginnings of what became more of a politically correct society, and certainly an Air Force. Um, I've told this before, and I'm sure we'll discuss it again on the program. But it was part of the reason that I chose the time that I chose to leave the Air Force active duty. Now, having said that, I did not leave disgruntled or you know disheartened at all. It was an awesome experience. Get through some amazing things and meet some amazing people, lifelong friends like that Mike and Pat and many others that I'm seeing on the live chat. We'll get to some of those here as well. But you know, I wouldn't have traded it for the world. However, when the political correctness started to come in and the social reengineering, um, and things that didn't have a lot to do in my military mind, as a senior captain, with combat effectiveness and flying fighters and as we used to say, flying jets and killing commies, but uh, uh, that made the decision easier. But also a factor was this thing about family. Is I was a preacher's kid growing up in the days when preachers didn't make much money, and you lived in a house that the church owned, and moved regularly because it was as a family grew, the income needed to grow as well. Incomes in those days at churches, at least in our denomination, were based upon the size of the church. The church set that based on tithes and things, and so it was this sort of a sense that you needed to Dad needed to move to a bigger church to have more money to support the family as we grew. Three kids as became
yeah,
teenagers, and so you're moving every few years, and it was difficult. Looking back on it now, it formed who I became and am, and I'm blessed for it. But it wasn't the life that I wanted for our kids, and we didn't have kids at the time. I wasn't sure I wanted kids, frankly, but it was that time in our relationship where it was either we're going to start a family or not, and if not, I might not have survived as long as I did, 24 years with her. But the point is that as we discussed that, certainly after combat, particularly in our next assignment, you know, I particularly thought, and she had grown up in the same community, the same house for most of her life, the same best friends, the same church, all the same schools, all of that. And, in just sort of kind of a relatively small town America. I mean, a suburb outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. It's growing pretty big now, but just a good old USA town. They had the Rooster Festival every year. She was Miss Chick, when she was like 17 years old, kind of thing. Just a good old town, and that's kind of what I sort of visioned that I would kind of prefer for our kids and what we pursued and we're blessed with. But this issue of moving all the time, and God bless you, Pat. I don't know how you did it as a child, and then you did it as a mom, and you raised just wonderful children that grew up to be wonderful young people and now wonderful adults. And how many grandkids you've got now?
one.
Just one. Okay, one. Yeah. So
Now, I'm pretty sure that's going to be it.
yeah. All right. Well, that's I'm sure you're spoiling the heck out of that child as well.
Yeah,
Awesome. But
as much we
yeah.
can.
So what did you see that? And again, I mean, and apple doesn't fall far from the tree, obviously here, and so to have a young man like Sean, do that Eagle Scout um, uh, uh, project, and look at again. I think things happen for a reason, and the timing of things is divine. And look, you're at Carlisle Barracks, where what was going on at Carlisle Barracks? Is that Air Command and Staff College or Army War College or
Army War College.
Army War College, yeah. So it's a big deal. Senior officers going through there it was a year-long program, I believe.
Yeah,
Like
and then
year-long
he left,
master's program.
and he
Yeah.
left from there and went to Korea alone.
Yeah. So was saying that that's a place where a lot of people come through, and so I'm
Mhm.
sure that study is got a lot of traction over the years.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
and
and the
I applaud you for being the person that stood up and say no, it's not the place of somebody at the wing staff or anyplace else, public affairs or whoever, to come into our schools and start telling the children what we think that you think they ought to know about what's going on with their parent in a war zone. Um, and imagine again now in 2023, um, we need a lot more Pat O'Connors to stand up and say, no, you can't tell our kids this. And, this is for me to say, not for you to say. And I'm going to go into the issues related to what's going on today with, with our kids and what they're being told in school.
well, and I will tell you, in all honesty, when we went to Carlisle Barracks, they do offer opportunities for the spouses to do something. And I worked on how we did in Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Across, and we had the Army, Navy, Air Force, everybody all together. And we came up with some ideas and some projects. And I went to the Army Chief of Staff, along with, I think there were about 15 of us. And we gave talked to the Chief of Staff and said, this is what we need to look at for the future. Um, you know, how you take care of children, how you take care of families, how you do this. Some people don't want, I got this. I don't need you.
Right.
Okay. And you don't bug them. You just say, this is where we are if you need us. Okay. And, there were a few times that I went to someone, one of the spouses, and just had to sit there and have some wine and bawl my eyes out. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. I appreciate the saying, that this was a group of people who worked together to take care of each other. And sometimes they knew before the individual knew that they needed to talk to someone, have somebody there with them. That's what the spouses and all of those women together helping each other out. It wasn't one of us. I mean, it was all of us working together.
Yeah, for sure.
And
No, I appreciate that, and it trickled down too. I know. I remember, Angela talking about her, and I think Mary Kreiner, Elizabeth Turner. They sort of saw a need among some of our maintainers' spouses,
yes,
because we're talking about in a fighter squadron, we're talking about a group of pretty sharp ladies. I mean, mostly college graduates, but very independent, very accomplished on their own, and not that in the rest of the Air Force it's not the case as well. But we're talking about our enlisted troops, especially in maintenance and support. You've maybe got some 18-year-old young lady who's in England, far away from home, newly married, you're young married, maybe with a young child, and now her spouse, her husband's away from home for who knows how long, in a very austere location, with very little means. By the way, I hope the pay and benefits has gotten better. I think it has over the years, but man, I mean, I remember being at the commissary, and it blew my mind when I saw, an enlisted person with food stamps, with,
oh, yeah.
I mean, living below a poverty level, as a military member is unconscionable. But so here you've got some young, she may not even know how to write a check. I'm not demeaning anyone, but I know that some of the squadron wives heard or saw a need to kind of mentor up and help out some of the younger ladies, whose spouse was gone, and they really didn't have the kind of Pat O'Connor maybe on their squadron recall roster. And
But we were small in number.
yeah,
You look at the people over in maintenance, how many people you're talking about.
right,
It's just,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
and you know those ladies helped not just in our squadron,
right.
they were helping across the board,
Yeah, and
whatever
that's
they
kind of
could
the point I
do.
wanted to make is that the
Susie,
example.
Susie might, you know, have a child that's a colic a child, and those women, I don't know how they could just tell seeing someone
Yeah,
and look at them and say, listen, let me watch your children.
yeah.
Go out, take a walk, do something. We'll take care of your children.
Yeah, there
That
was. I
is,
know. It's also some. Hey, some of us are going to have a glass of wine over at somebody else's house. Come on over. Too. It
yeah,
wasn't cliquish like like you thought it might be,
yeah.
and that was awesome. And I know that wherever Pat O'Connor was, in over the 28 years of at least dragging around with Mike, that you know that you are making lives better for people all around you. And but did you see over the years? Did you see um, any changes, any shifts, any paradigms in supporting military families?
I think we're getting better at it. Um, I think we need to be, instead of giving women these books about what clothes you should wear and how you should, that's where we're still at,
Yeah,
somewhat. Um, you can't force anything on anyone,
right.
but you have to try to open people's eyes, which is what the Vulture Wives did. They saw a need. Nobody had to tell them. They saw a need, and they worked on it, and they helped people. And we need more people to tell that story so that it goes up to the guys there in the Pentagon. And you have to have those things, even if it's nothing more than saying, we're going to start this program at our base, and we're going to give you some ideas and go and let them go with it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
The Vulture ladies that took it upon themselves to take care of someone else, whether it's someone from the Vulture community or from the maintenance community, look what those people on their own did. No pats on the back. They didn't do it for a pat on the back. But we need to take what they learned and what they did and spread it into the rest of the Air
yeah,
Force.
yeah. And that's a really good point. Is that again, my experience before was very limited, and really afterwards as well, because my experience after Alconbury was Pope Air Force Base, North Carolina, the first composite wing in the Air Force. So it was, and I was like the first. Other than the top three leadership, I was the first instructor pilot to show up there, and it became the instructor pilot for the wing commander, who was a brigadier general. We were just standing that place up, and so there was not this big support system, and our pilots were just starting to come in. So and then I went off to the weapons school for 6 months. So um, really, Alconbury was my only and Angela's only really experience into a sort of a standard functioning uh, wing and squadron structure. And then we went off to combat, and as you were suggesting, that was where not only was maintenance and ops and sort of figuring out how do we get these jets to the desert, because it was not anything we had any plans for. It was not an area of the world where we were supposed to be supporting. In fact, we were supposed to be kind of drawing down our squadron and leaving Europe, and so all of that, we figured it out. And again, at least in my viewpoint, from my own experience, it sounds like was not the only one, where what was going on back home was not a lot in our thinking as we were deploying. And then, again, folks, in 42 days, 144 A-10s flew over 8,500 sorties. So it was a crazy, crazy robust ops tempo, and it was no kidding more. So there's a lot that goes on there, but so I knew what was happening. I mean, I knew in hindsight, I knew what happened is that you all figured it out too, and you supported each other, you took care of each other, and you made it happen. Nobody had to tell you how to do it. And you didn't want them to tell you, too much about how you should be doing it, or how you should be, handling your families, as from an institutional standpoint. And I don't know. Again, left the Air Force a couple of years after that, but I've kept in touch with a lot of people, and I watch. I like to think I keep track of current events, and I won't talk about just the Air Force in specific, but I think in our military as a whole, we needed a lot more guys like Mike O'Connor and a lot less guys like we got now. I heard the statistic that was interesting that during World War II, we had 1.4 million. No, I'm sorry, we had, and I don't know the statistic because I'm going to blow up, but something like 14 million people, men under arms, and now we've got like 1.2 million or something like that. There's the same number of general officers across the flag ranks have not thinned. The bureaucracy has gotten crazy. You don't have to comment, but I just can't even imagine sort of how it sort of progressed. I hope that it's true, that I think that it is, that in some regards the support for military families improved, maybe more access to programs and counseling and help. But I suspect that what was really effective is just what the model, the Pat O'Connor model from RAF Falconberry, the 511 Vultures, which was, let's just take care of our own. And just be attuned to what the needs are and meet those needs, and it will work out just fine. That's probably the model that continues to work well. It's probably not some top-down program that's heavily funded from somebody in the Pentagon.
Those women took care of people, and I can't tell you how many of them. No one knew they were doing this.
Yeah.
They were doing what they needed. They saw a need and they did it.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to do with it. I was sticking my nose into things that I shouldn't have, but
Well, that may be.
There was one of Michael's people in one of his assignments, and that gentleman looked at me and he said, Patricia, your husband could get promoted if you would just shut up.
Wow.
And I went, sure, Doc, fine.
Wow. Well,
so
there you go. Well, you're validating more and more, validating my decision to leave the Air Force when I did.
But anyway, I mean, I can't say enough about what those women did. There is no way you can thank them. There are so many stories I hear over the years, and I'm like, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Guess what? I didn't need to know that, because it was those ladies taking care of people.
Yeah.
I didn't need to be told about it. They saw a need and they did it. And, was I unhappy when we were leaving? Yes, I was unhappy we were leaving. But but the O'Connors finally, at least Mike and I, finally got to go to Ireland. So
Yeah, there you go.
2 years
Right on.
ago, we got to go to Ireland because we were
Awesome.
scheduled to go to Ireland. And then this funky desert storm thingy came up. And then we left.
Yeah.
Um, but, I just, we need to continue to listen to people, and we need to, you don't have to tell the person's name, but to have someone continually say, being a military spouse, being a military child is a big deal.
Yeah. It is.
And
It's a big
we
sacrifice.
need to thank them.
Yeah, that's right.
We need
That's
to,
right.
I look at my boys, and, one of Colin's things one time was, have you noticed I don't get close to people? And I said, yeah.
Mm.
And I said, what's up? And he said, I'm going to find a friend and get to know him, and then we're going to move.
Yeah.
So why make the effort? And I went,
Yeah.
okay. But he does have some long friends from many years, and he's a wonderful young man. Um, I would not have made this whole moving thing happen. He is my, you know, I'm getting older. Memory sometimes, plays tricks on me. He's always there. He's got my back. And
Yeah.
that is what the wives did. They had our back. They had the back of anyone that needed something. And
Yeah. Well,
that's
as I was saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Pat, and I know you're humble about this, and I appreciate that, but the example that you set, the leadership that you provided, the way in which you did it, in your unabashed, no nonsense, loving but loving way, um, was exactly what was needed at AR Falconberry in the early months of 1991. I know what it meant to my former wife. I'm going to see. I told you we'd tear up. Here I go. Getting emotional about this. I know what it meant to her. I believe the first Vulture reunion was a reunion of the Vulture wives. Was it not? Pretty sure
yeah,
it
we were
was.
overseas.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, were you okay? Yeah. So and so and I think that trickled down into many families lives that you've touched over your career, and that of course the most important of which are your own two wonderful children, and it's just a tremendous legacy. um, when it's no secret sort of that I'm interviewing people here on my channel. I haven't been shy or try to hide the fact that I'm hoping to promote a book that I've got coming out in the spring. But my first guest was Mike, and there's nobody that I'd rather have as my first guest, and then his crew chief, and now his better is not just his other half, his better half, the rock of certainly of our squadron, and I'm sure of your family, as you've gone through a lot of the in the Air Force. And it is a sacrifice. It's a privilege. It's an honor, but it's a sacrifice as well. I can absolutely empathize and sympathize with Colin in terms of that is what he shared with you about not feeling that comfortable getting close to people, because I had the same exact experience as a preacher's kid, and in a very similar probably environment where you live in a glass house as well, and
Yeah.
well, I, roof stomping in a glass house might have been a little bit different. I'm not sure. But when you live in a church parsonage, you live in a glass house, and it's a very tough thing to do, um, and with some very specific expectations about excuse me, about about how you're supposed to behave as a preacher's kid, as a squadron commander's kid, as a wing DO's kid, as a wing commander's, etc. I'm sure as you go along the line, it just gets worse. But all the same time is with different expectations about how you're supposed to be as that person's spouse. Um, I'm just glad that you always that you wouldn't cave to that kind of crap and it's bullshit. You're just a great person, and man, we're just so blessed to have you and Mike as our leaders during that difficult but awesome time. I mean, it just wouldn't trade those experiences, memories for anything. I don't think any of us would. I think it shaped a lot of us in the future, and um, and I just appreciate you for it, and really happy to have you have come on and share your experiences with us. So thanks for getting teary eyed with me too. Mutual support, I like that.
And you are going to come and visit, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
We could work it so that we could have you here, and then have young little pilot. I'm having a senior moment. I'll think of his name in just a minute. And he can
Scott.
come. Scott.
Yeah. In fact,
Scott
let's see.
probably come and pick you up.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Scott. Yeah, I really enjoyed having Scott on the program. I'd actually spoken. We probably had I don't know, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hour phone call previous to that, unrelated to the program. And then I kind of thought, man, I should have him come on the program. But hey, look look down in the comments there. There's Scott. It says back here we are here, and not just Scott, but also I saw Kimberly, new friend on Facebook. Thanks, Kimberly, for your support. There's Kimberly saying hi as well. Watched on YouTube. And then here's some other good folks that you probably know. Let's see. I saw a really cool comment. Just scrolling through these. Forgive me as I do that. Here we go. Probably know this person.
Oh, Mama Pat.
Mama Pat. We all know who really ran that base, the Wives Club. Yeah, well, my granddad used to say.
Oh, that's Greg McPhail.
Yeah, that's Greg McPhail.
Hey,
my granddad used to say. Well, I'm the head of this household, but Pa's the neck, and the neck turns the head. So it was kind of the way there. Yeah, Greg shared some good stuff here. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And
Greg and his compatriot got the A-10. It's a small one, and unbeknownst to us, the Vulture, Mike's plane, is the die-cast one. So Greg McPhail and Scott got one.
That's
and
cool.
Cannot get them anymore.
Those are awesome. Yeah, there's a diecast of 964 as well that has been sold out for a long time. I'm trying to find one of, but let's see. Scott said he doesn't have enough hair. Don't have enough hair left for a flat top anymore. I probably still maybe do. I don't know, but it's not fashionable. But here's probably Scott says the 511th has to be very best unit he had the honor to be a part of. But here's probably a good way to kind of wrap up this interview right here. We love you, Mama Pat, from Scott, and the rest of us as well. I know that's a sentiment shared by many. And my son and his lovely wife Carissa live in Houston, and so I'm thinking next time I'm down Houston way, she'll probably be. I think they're coming back here for Christmas, but maybe sometime in the early next year. As the books, as I get finished writing the book, and just waiting for it to be published and get it out. But I'd love to make the trek down there because it's reasonable to say San Antonio to Houston. That's a reasonable trip from here. That makes some sense from Oklahoma City. So absolutely, and it'd be awesome to see Scott again as well. So cool.
Yeah.
So I want to make another pitch for a couple things. One is on this thing of military families. Pat's absolutely right, and it's we thank service members. I think it's something that's awesome that this country is doing really since since Desert Storm, and it's trickled back to the Vietnam veterans as well. They're getting thanked and they're wearing their hats and stuff, and it's cool. That's a legacy of Desert Storm, I think, as well. But thank those military families too. Thank those spouses. Think of them at Christmas time. If you've got a base in your area, um, uh, or your hometown or whatever, you know, call them up. Call up morale, welfare, and recreation on Air Force bases. I'm sure something similar on all the bases. If you call and get a base operator and say, "Hey, I want to find out how I can help military families," they'll put you in touch with somebody. There's also a hotline's 988. Okay? 988 is the veterans hotline for veterans, spouses, families, loved ones. It's really set up for immediate help, like mental health help, etc. If you have an emergency or you're thinking of suicidal thoughts or some of those things, call 911, of course. But 988 is a clearinghouse resource number for military members and their families. But reach out and thank those folks. Uh, uh, do what you can with what you got where you're at. That's what the good ladies at Alconbury did when we were deployed, and I think that's something that we can do in our lives every day with any sort of situation. Military families and um, are the unsung heroes of keeping this country safe. Freedom isn't free. Yeah, it's a privilege, an honor to serve, but it's a sacrifice for a lot of people as well. It's certainly a sacrifice for families, and it's tough on them. It really is. And when you look at the divorce rates and the suicide rates that affect military and their families, it's no secret that it's a tough gig, folks. And use all the support, especially at this holiday time. A lot of people away from extended family, and could use a little extra boost of thank you, or help, or come join us, kind of thing as well. So I'll make that pitch. And then also, as always, the Phoenix House. I mean, we see guys that are the product of failed relationships in the military, and end up some pretty dire straits as a result. It's not always the path to homelessness for military members, but often is. Broken relationships, broken homes, failed marriages, bad divorces, substance abuse, social abuse, a lot of things. And so, it trickles down into some very serious problems like that I'm happy to help with here in Oklahoma City at the Phoenix House. I want to continue to thank folks that have supported the Phoenix House. Some of our super great supporters, like Vicki Hauser, for instance. This awesome person, Scott Atwood and Kimberly, have been very generous in supporting the Phoenix House. As have many others. There's I made a pitch kind of for this last time, and it's I really want to thank the folks for helping us with the Thanksgiving dinner. Ken Tanch, I want to thank Ken especially, again, along with Vicki for supporting us, and I got you down for the special edition copy of the book when it comes out. But in the top of the comments here tonight, I'm setting up a special channel membership. I looked into doing this on, and I may have to do this as the numbers grow bigger, but doing on something like Patreon. But for now, I'm just going to continue to do it with, direct contact with my viewers, because that way all the support goes to the cause instead of 70%, which is what Patreon provides for contributions. So until I find another platform that's better, I think I'll continue to do that. And hey, I got some emails from people that said, "Man, it's tough financial times, and I'd help, but I can't." And I just thank you for thinking of us. But as I said, do what you can with what you got, with where you're at. Just prayers and good thoughts going out is very valuable as well. The email that says, "Hey, thanks for the work, and I appreciate it, and I support the veterans, and when I can, I'll help financially." That's awesome. And I appreciate that. But I'm going to provide some special content, which will be some short clips from our guest segments um, on various topics. Also, some cool A10 stuff. Um, and some pictures and memorabilia and those kinds of things as well. Um, but so the memberships will be $8.10 a month, and that'll get you the special access. Also, in the as we get more and more live chat comments, and then we get questions and comments to the episodes as we publish those. We'll provide priority to answering those comments during the live streams from people who are channel members. $8.10 a month, or $80.10 a year. And I'll continue that until I get 100 member subscribers. We'll continue that. The first 100 to subscribe at that yearly level will receive that special edition of the book, personalized and inscribed by me to you, and then also with the special plaques that we're going to have made up for those special editions. The first one's off the printing press, which I'm still pressing for springtime, probably March timeframe is what we're looking at. So, and that will be before the Alconberry reunion, which I'm going to pledge to attend and support and help out however I can with that, Pat. That's awesome. Man, I can't wait for that. That'd be so cool. That would be just so cool. And we're still fairly young enough to enjoy it, I think, too. So before we get to be old geezers that don't need canes and stuff.
I am one of those.
Well, I'm going to just say in front of everybody, you look awesome. I mean, you look as young as ever and beautiful as ever. And Mike got a winner with you for sure. So,
could you do a favor though?
Of course.
Can you find a way, whether it's on the Desert Storm Desert Shield Facebook page, can you put the information about the channel membership?
Yep.
I would approve that.
Yeah, I sure will. I'll forward that stuff, and then also
also information on Phoenix.
Yeah, I've got some pictures coming up, some pictures that I'm going to post up here on Phoenix House as well, and so kind of using the channel as a clearinghouse for all that stuff.
Okay.
But absolutely, and I do have the hog walk stuff that I'll put on there. I've made notes about that as well.
Thanks.
And then so I'll just close it out by saying for everybody, don't forget to help out the channel by subscribing, liking the episodes, and then ring that bell. That bell will get you notifications of not just new episodes every week, because you know when those are going to be. They're going to be Wednesdays at 8:10, like always. But also other content that I post up will be if you ring that bell. So subscribe, like, ring the bell, and share the videos. Share the links to the channel with people that you know that might be interested. And also, at any time, make comments. Send me emails, whatever, with what you'd like to see on the show. I love your positive comments, but I don't mind constructive criticism either. Look, I'm just a dork that doesn't know what I'm doing, so I'm making it up as I go along. We're trying to get better on the production quality. You can't get better on the guests. I mean, at least, in fact, I've had a couple people say, "Well, you set the bar pretty high with the guests." Yeah, I sure have. Just go big or don't go at all, I guess. So, Pat, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I really enjoyed catching up with you. We could do this all night, and we probably will when I come down to Bourne, Texas, and visit soon. Cool. Thanks, folks. Thanks again, Pat. Give the boss a hug for me, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, everybody. Good night.